Hello, and welcome to Hopeful Conversations, brought to you by Robbie's Hope Foundation. I am your host, Kari Eckert. Joining me today is Dan Watkins. Dan is the varsity girls head soccer coach at Wheat Ridge High School, a school in Jeffco, the metro area of Denver. And Dan previously worked as the president of the Colorado High School Coaches Association and the Colorado High School Soccer Coaches Association. Dan is a father of two daughters, one in high school, another in college. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today on Hopeful Conversations.
Thanks so much for having me, Kari. I look forward to chatting with you.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. What challenges have you faced during your time as a coach pertaining to athletes' mental health?
Oh, what a big question. I think, it changes from year to year and from group to group. But I think, at the premise, the biggest thing is to try to know your kids and know what's going on with them, and try to get a sense of where they're coming from and what their needs are, because every kid is different. Everybody is unique. And so when you talk about challenges in mental health, there's just a lot of things to think about. And as a coach, you try to be connected with your kids and understanding where they're coming from. But there's kids from all walks of life, all different experiences when they come in, and you never know what they're going to need. There's definitely players that I've had that struggle with situations at home, that have anxiety, that have depressions, that are things just outside of the soccer world that, as much as you say, don't bring into practice or to the game. That's who they are. And so the challenges are to really try to get a pulse of what's going on within your team and with your kids. So that's not really a specific overcoming challenges, but I think by knowing the kids and knowing what they need and kind of being in the framework of, what do the kids bring to the table and how can I be good for them today and each day when they come in. And we see different things, and it's different than what it's in the classroom. And sometimes
you're a teacher too.
Yeah, but being a coach is sometimes you have a little bit deeper connection, or you have the opportunities for kids to open up a little bit more. You get a little bit more one-on-one time, and you get to see them interacting in their peer group. We can go deeper as far as specific things, but I think the best thing is to get your team, get your kids, know what they need, and know that they need a good space, that when they come to practice, that it's more than just what you're doing on the field, that they need time to connect with each other and be around each other. And then you can move forward, but have in your mind that those challenges are there and there's difficulties there. And so how can you help them in that environment, in the practice environment, which would be different than if it was a challenge one-on-one, that I could address.
Okay, so I heard two things, like getting a pulse on your players, on your team as a whole. And then at the end there, starting to talk about how you present yourself as a coach to the athletes and what your expectations of them versus on the field versus off the field.
True. And you have to know, you have to give them the space, but when they come in, you don't know what's going on in their world. But you got to try to bring them together and focus on, what you're doing, but have that connective piece to there's different things happening. But we only have them for a short amount of time. And
for a high school season.
For a high school season.
How long is it?
Typically about 3 months. The winter sports are a little bit longer because they carry over from the fall semester to the spring semester, but the fall and spring seasons are a few months that we have with them.
Okay. So what would you tell a student athlete that something important to prioritize?
Take care of yourself first. I think when they come in that, like I said, we want to be able to be hey, when you're here, you're part of this group. We want to create a situation where it feels family-like, and that when you're here, you have the support of your coaches and of your teams. But they have to figure out what's important to them too. And we hope that when they're with us, that they've kind of separated some things to be able to come together with us, but they got to take care of themselves. And we tell players at the beginning of the year when we get together, if there's stuff going on that you can communicate, whether you want to talk to us about it or not, if there's something that you're just hey, I need, space or time, or I need to deal with this, then absolutely. So we support them in that regard, and we ask them if they want want to talk about it or want to be connected, or if they just are like, hey, I've got to deal with that. And so, we don't have that all the time throughout the season, but it has definitely happened over the years where, kids are just like, there's other stuff going on. I need to take care of other things. And that's what we want them to know. Like, we're here for them and to support them as coach and as teammates, but prioritize yourself first. Take care of the things that you need to take care of. And then, but we feel like there's value in sports and value in participating and value in being around us. And so when there's that opportunity to say, hey, we don't want to just say like push through it, but we want you to have the opportunity of like, hey, if you just need to kind of get away from that and be with us today, then, we would love to have you. We want you here and we're going to be here for you. And so those are all case by case situations. And we do what we can to help them with whatever way they need it.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
Have you encountered an instance where sports potentially became too overwhelming for a student athlete?
Yes. And I feel like as a program, we do a pretty good job of, we don't feel like that always comes from us. Like, we want to be successful. We want to build a program. We want to have a culture. But a lot of the times it's the outside influences and the other things that create that, where they become overwhelmed. Sometimes it's within themselves. It's competition. It's comparing themselves. It's, instead of comparing where they were previously and what improvements they've made and things like that, because that sometimes is overwhelming when they just get caught up in comparing to others as opposed to like within where were you previously. And so that becomes overwhelming. There's pressure to kids that want to continue on and they want to play in college, or there's pressure at the dinner table. It's why didn't you do this? Or why did you play this way? Or what is the coach telling you to do? And so they're hearing all these outside forces saying, you've got to be great, or you've got to do it this way. And man, wow, that is some pressure on a teenage boy or girl to say, I've got to perform, or I'm going to go home and have to deal with this, or I'm going to have somebody coming to watch me play and they're going to think I did this wrong or that wrong. And so it definitely happens. I mean, how to address it, how to support that is completely different. But, kids get overwhelmed because, in high school games, it's awesome. Their friends come to the games and their friends are in their stands. But then there's also a little bit of like, well, I wasn't very good. And then there's that internal, like, well, what are my friends going to think? What are my parents going to think? What are the college coaches going to think? What does my coach think? And all of those is like, wow. And so part of being in sports is learning how to be able to work your way through some of that, but it doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't mean those things aren't going to be real, and the kids are going to still have to deal with those things.
Were you a student athlete when you were in high school?
I was. Yep. Growing up, I played basketball, not until the very end. I played basketball till about 10th grade, and then I played soccer myself. And some of these same things that kids feel today, I felt way back then.
Do you think they're amplified today potentially for young people?
Absolutely. And the other piece that I didn't throw in that last answer was social media. I mean, the factors, and we all know that it's not just like the conversation at the dinner table. It's group messages and it's Snapchats and all those other things. I mean, that adds to the pressure of kids, and that's not stuff that I ever had to deal with. It was just kind of, you would go home and maybe your parents would ask about it, or maybe they'd ask about, why you did this or why the coach did that. But then it kind of left there, and then you just show back up to practice the next day and you moved on, and it didn't stay with you like it does with our athletes today.
Wow. Okay, so a little bit of a shift because we just have a limited amount of time, and there's so much to cover. Okay. But have you seen injuries affect the mental health of athletes?
Well, of course, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things, and we talk a lot about the person over player. We really talk about who you are is not a representative of what you are as a player, and we try to get them to get their identity with who they are and not who the player is. But when there's injuries, part of that is taken away. And so you're part of that team, and they want to be out there. They want to be part of it. They feel like they've let themselves down. They've let their teammates down. And the reality is they just want to participate. They want to be a part of it. And now when they can't, especially initially when an injury happens or when a surgery happens, mentally it's a blow. And, as a program, I mean, we try to make a big emphasis on like, they're still part of the team. They get to do everything that we get to do. They just can't be on the field with us. So they're part of who we are and what we're about. And we ingrain them in our culture and what we're doing because, talk about pouring yourself into something. And then when it's time to be able to showcase it and compete and now you're out. And so that is a drain. It's a mentally very challenging and very difficult for kids to get through with a big injury, and it can really shut kids down, especially the ones that are really like, it's all about, I want to play at the next level, because then there's other factors come into play about the mental aspect of like, no, what's next, because this has been taken away from me.
What percentage of kids today want to play at the next level?
I think it varies from sport to sport. And I think there's, again, when you grow up and you do travel teams and you put in the hours and and then, you're talking about it and parents are talking about it and kids are traveling. I think it's bigger early on. And then I think kind of the reality comes in is there's such a small percentage that will get that opportunity. And so it's not a lot. It's not a lot. And I think there's also more and more kids today that I think, just decide not to play. They decide not to pursue that because of the demands and because of the strains and the expectation. And they love everything about it, but they're realizing, even if I could play at whatever level I could play at, like maybe that's not the experience I want to have anymore. And I think that also speaks to the pushing that's happening in our youth sports society today.
Is that empowering for a young person when they can make that decision?
I've seen quite a few kids make the decision to say, you know what, it's not for me. And they do, strangely, they feel probably just as good about not deciding to do it as trying to decide to do it and pursue it. And empowering is a great word because it does give them that confidence and that realization like, hey, it's about me and I want to be happy and I'm not doing it for anybody else. And this is what I truly want. And when they can figure that out on their own or through support, then, I mean, they turn out just fine once that decision's been made. And it's almost like a little bit of relief and a little bit of joy, and they move on and they can just enjoy playing and doing what they love.
I suspect it's harder for the parents than it is I'm sure it's very hard for a young person who has the talent and the opportunity to maybe take it further, but to make that decision. And it's probably the parents that really struggle with that one.
I would agree.
Yeah. As a coach, Dan, what is important when supporting student athletes, and what is something you try to avoid?
What's important in supporting them? I think that you have to represent like what you're about. You have to decide like, this is our culture, this is who we are. You have to take care of kids. You have to be able to find out where their needs are and be able to address those needs. When you hear the word coach and you think about, I heard this from a speaker one time, when you think of the word coach, that was the mode of transportation to move people from one place to another. And so back in the day, a coach was someone would go, with a horse and buggy, right? It would go pick people up. They would meet them where they are and take them to where they want to go. And I thought that was a great analogy because as a coach, that's really what we're doing, right? We're coming to meet these kids where they are, figuring out where they want to go, and then what kind of things can I do to take them where they're headed and to be able to get them. And I think that you have to do that by caring about them, by valuing them, by respecting them, empowering them, and doing all of those things. And so it's a lot, right? And we've got a great influence as coaches. And I heard another great quote: influence is never neutral. Whatever you're doing is influencing the young people that you get to work with every single day. And it's never neutral. So your influence is somewhere on the positive side or somewhere on the negative side at all times. So your body language, how you interact, how you greet them, how you welcome them, all of those things matter every single day. And coaching is a profession where most people work a full-time job before they ever step to practice, right? And it's asking people that are out in the workforce and saying, work as hard as you can all day long to provide or do whatever, make an income. And then now, after that long day, you have to be at your best. You have to be at your best because all those eyes are looking at you, and you have to give them what they need and take them where they want to go. So that's that side of it. And then remind me of the second part of your question.
Anything you try to avoid as a coach?
All the mistakes, screwing up. I mean, I think you do your best to do what you can, and I think when you say you try to avoid, I don't know that you're necessarily trying to avoid as much as you're just trying to try to do the right thing.
I heard you say positive and like not neutral, so trying to avoid the negative.
Yeah, I mean, doing something where you can. It's pretty easy when stuff's not going well in practice, or you're working on things and things aren't going well, to decide how you're going to correct, how you're going to make change. And sometimes it's high expectations, but sometimes it's like laying it out there. This is not good enough. This is what we need to work on. This is what you need to do. And maybe there's times where you have to mix that in a little bit, but you have to be careful because if you go that negative direction and you start going in a way where they feel like, you're bringing an individual down or a group of players down, and you can lose kids really fast when that's the vibe of the practice. And so, yeah, you have to avoid that, but at the same time, you have to have those pieces where you are correcting and you're trying to improve and trying to make change. And it's a fine line of on that side. I just don't, as when you say like things you don't want to do, it kind of just goes back to what's your culture, who you're about. And I think if you try to come in with that, then you can avoid a lot of it. But there's always things. I mean, I go home every night, every practice, every game, and in your gut, there's things you could have done better, or you could have said things differently. Every night since I've coached for 25 years, I leave that way. And it's not really a great way to do the job, but you feel like you want to do your best for kids.
Well, that shows your true self, that speaks for itself. I don't need to add my commentary there. What kind of communication do you have with players or with parents to ensure a mentally supportive environment for their student athlete?
Well, with the player side, I mean, we're try to be very intentional. Like when we start practice and try to greet players and make sure that they feel welcome. I mean, I could say it every day, but every time I step on the field, I mean, my feeling is there's no place I'd rather be. I mean, this is where I want to be. I want to be here with you. I want to be here working with you. And I think when they feel that and they hear that, then it naturally just becomes like a little bit more comforting. It's not like, what's he going to be like today, when they just hear that this is where I want to be. And what
do you verbally say that to them?
I don't. I say it in that capacity in some way or another almost every practice when we start. Like, I'm excited. Nice. I'm excited for us to work together today. Excited that you're here. If somebody's been down, or I knew that they were down at school after the last game, like maybe when they're warming up or stretching, I'll come over and like kind of pat them on the shoulder and just be like, I'm glad you're here today. And nice. Then sometimes that just like lets go of like how they felt about the game the day before or whatever it might be. Another thing that I do is I survey our players, and I send a form out after game, and I kind of ask them for a little self-reflection and a little self-evaluation, and ask them
after a game.
Yep, and I just say respond to me before practice tomorrow, just so I can take a pulse. So I ask about kind of rank your sleep, like are you getting enough sleep? Rank your nutrition, and then like I kind of rank your performance. And then I never like judge it, but I just say like, how did that tie into what's your stress level? What's your nutrition? What's your hydration? And then something that I've just added that I'm going to do this year that I didn't do in the past was an opportunity to say, is there anything that you want me to know? Nice. And if I bring that up correctly and they trust me at the beginning of the year and say, hey, I just want to let you know this is going on. And then a follow-up question would be just a yes or no, like, is this something that you want to talk to me or one of the assistants about? And then that way they can just kind of let me know, like, I'm struggling right now, or I'm, school is not going well, or something's happening to me, and I just want to let you know, but I really didn't want to bring it up at practice. So it's just a chance to kind of communicate, like, hey, and I want them to be able to have that space, whether they can come and talk to me at practice, they can come to my classroom at school, or they can just put it in a message. And I don't know, I'm kind of interested to see what kind of responses I'll get there, but I know through my own daughters as they've gone through sports, right? There's stuff going on. And so we just want to make sure that they have the opportunity to be able to share that.
Is this survey a Coach Watkins generated, or did you it sounds exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I generated it. I kind of created it years ago, and just kind of I want the pulse of the group when I come to practice the next day. How are they feeling? Are they all saying, I'm not getting enough sleep? I mean, it also goes into there's kids taking high-level classes and courses, and big projects are coming, all those things. And as a coach, the more I have an understanding of what's going on, I feel like the better I can serve them.
I'm excited for your survey. It's great for students and it's great for you as a coach. The last question I think it's fantastic. What do I need to know about? Do we want to talk about it? I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I know the answer to this question. Have you ever encountered a coach who is not supportive of their team's mental health?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, I think I was supported as a kid going through it, but just watching other coaches. I mean, I think this in general, there's some that are a little bit more business-like, and it's a little bit more wins and losses and execution. And oftentimes when you watch a coach a game, you don't really necessarily have a sense of what it's like in their culture and what it's like at their practice. So I hate to be too judgmental if I feel like not a great vibe when I watch other coaches coach, because they could be doing amazing things behind the scenes with kids and with athletes, and then their game day demeanor just might be different. But I do think that you have to be very intentional when you coach, and I think I'd be wrong to say that I think everybody does that. We do the best that we can within our program and hope that we're doing the things and providing the things that kids need. But, and you hear stuff from athletes, from kids that play other sports and play at other schools or wherever it might be.
Clubs,
clubs
whatever.
And things like that, they, say things like, they're only concerned about, results, or they're only concerned about this, or they say that they want to do this for us, but really it comes, all of those. And everybody's different, but I hope, as a coach and as somebody who works with lots of coaches, I've been very fortunate to have those opportunities. We really try to push on working with kids and trying to get across that that's where it starts, because you're being in the position of a leader, you have that influence, and when you get it, and I've seen coaches that I've met with that are experienced that you should have seen me my first 5 years coaching, or you should have seen me my first 10 years coaching, where we're all learning, right? We're all trying to get better at it, but they're are talking to referees and saying, boy, that coach years ago, but they figured it out, and they would kind of laugh about it. They kind of started changing their framework on how they addressed their players and the coaches and the athletes. And, that's what you want. We want our kids to have good experience, and we don't do everything right. I mean, we try to do the best that we can and hope that we're doing good for kids and giving them a space to be supported and feeling good about what they do, knowing full well we never know the whole story. We never know what's always going on behind them, but all we can do is give them that environment and hope that it does become a positive experience. And I think coaches grow just like players grow. And so ones that started off in that realm, kind of adjust over time, because if they don't, they're not going to be coaching very long.
Yeah. I think that's a good perspective, especially for a high school parent, that you're usually, as a high school parent, this is from my lived experience, you're only seeing the game. You're not watching them on the practice field. Yeah. But that it could be different. What the coach is presenting game day versus practice, and asking your student athlete, well, what are they like at practice? Yeah. And learning more about the culture that I like that. Yeah. Versus when your kid is in a club sport and they're little, mm-hmm. and you think that they're going to be a D1 player, you're watching everything all of the time. That's from personal experience as well.
Yep. That's true.
And I know I'm not the only parent. The culture that we are raising our children in, and it's tough.
Yeah. It really is, and you hope, and I always talk to my parent group is, there's kind of 4 different roles at a game. There's the coach, you don't get to be that role. There's the referee, you don't get to be that role. You're the player. There's players, you don't get to be that role. So your role is the parent and the supporter, right? So that's what That's what it's about, right? Is supporting the kids, supporting the team, supporting what's going on, and knowing that you're not happy with everything that's going on, or you don't agree with everything that's going on, but that's the role that you get to play as a parent, right? Is be supportive of your kids and enjoy watching them play and enjoy seeing them smile and shine with their teammates. And when there's tough days, just be supportive for them, and you don't have to fix it for them. Just be supportive and encouraging, and inevitably those situations turn out pretty good for the kids.
Do you have to present that to parents each spring at the beginning of what their expectations of them are?
Yes, for sure. I mean, and I think when that becomes your culture and that's becomes what it's about, then it's easier every single year. I think the longer we've done it, the smoother it's been, because people know that that's the role that they play. And I mean, we've both been, and everybody's been at games where you can kind of look around and hear things from the stands that you definitely are like, what's going on? Like, or that poor or that poor kid, like that parent just won't stop. And it never turns out good, but it's hard. When it's your kid out there and you want to support your kid. So you got to look through it through a little bit different lens, and that's hard to do when your kid's out there.
That's a lot of time invested, a lot of just everything, emotion, money, just like self-worth. So many things that come out on that field to that game versus.
Yeah. And you know what, but it's great for kids. I mean, I over and over again say the positives of kids participating, whether it be in sports or activities or music or drama or whatever it is, that they can be involved and feel supportive and enjoy what they're doing. Like, it's so great for them. It really is. It doesn't mean that there's not troubles or problems or other things going on with them, but it does give them a great environment to kind of play off of, to get some support to help them move through and grow as a human.
I think it gives any of those activities, it's about community.
Yeah.
Like, it's finding your people.
Yeah.
It's fun when I visiting with seniors in high school and thinking about college and like that next step. And it's just like, you have to find your people.
Yeah.
And often it's your teammates.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of gives you a natural group to be around and be connected with. And everybody, especially in high school age, they're trying to find their people and trying to find their supports. And sometimes when you're part of a group, that turns out pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned a tiny bit about like watching other coaches and some of your roles, the opportunities that has given to you. I'm wondering if you predict any adjustments from high school administrators about being more accommodating to the commitments of athletes beyond their sports.
Well, you're just talking about kids that have more things going on.
Yeah, you talked about like a lot of your athletes are like taking those AP classes and those exams and maybe trying to work and like juggle so many things.
Yeah, I mean, I think administrators, in general it's sometimes hard to stay afloat, right? All the different things that are going on. And sometimes it does fall back on the coaches to be able to figure it out. And I think both coaches and school people, we all have to work together, because it's not just about the sport or just about this class or just about this thing, that we have to be understanding of kids. And they are oftentimes like way overspent with their hours and their time. And they got to be able to adjust that. But it's hard to say when you're part of something to go up and tell the coach, I need to do this, or can I get this off? Because they don't want to let somebody else down. And so they need to feel supportive enough in whatever environment that they're in, that they can both advocate for themselves, but also have a coach who's understanding, that's willing to work with kids. And, I don't know necessarily that it's school administrators per se. I mean, I think it's everybody. It's everybody that works with a student athlete or whatever the student is involved in, to be able to say, just to put that message out there, like, we have to do what's best for kids. And sometimes that doesn't always align with what you feel is best for you or for you and your team, that you have to, understand the situation and be supportive, because you can't push them to a situation where they're super uncomfortable or they get anxiety about it, and they're worse off than just asking to be able to have people help them. And then they don't want to go to anybody now because then they don't feel like they're going to get the support that they need.
How can a parent be supportive of a high school coach?
I kind of mentioned a little bit of it. I mean, they have to be supportive of the whole program. They have to be supportive, and they have to. I think it starts at the dinner table. I mean, I think with your own kid, you have to be able to say, whether if it's a struggle, like go talk to the coach, or if you need to work on things, go talk to them. And it can't be a situation of, why did the coach do this? Why did they sub this way? Or why do you guys play this way? Or I mean, soccer is a little bit more free flowing, but other sports, why are you running this offense or calling these plays? And when the kids go home and all they hear is their parents questioning everything that the coach does, then that's not so supportive of the coach. And then it becomes that way. And then when the parents take that dinner table and then they go back into the stands for a game and are on the sideline and those things continue, it can domino pretty quickly. So being supportive is just that. It's being hands off with the role that the coach plays. Ask for things that they should be asking for, communication, knowing what's going on, making sure that there are people caring for my kid. But other than that, like, what do you need? How can we support you? Is there something I can do for the team? What kind of things would help you make it easier for you to coach? How can I help you free up some time for you? Or there's some logistical things I can take care of? All of those things. And on the backside of that, that's all of that should come from a place where they just want to help. Not that if I start helping, then my student athlete will be treated better. Because that's not why, and so because that's something, I mean, I don't really ever feel that within my program, but I know that that's a thing out there. The more the parent does, the better the benefit for the kid. And that it doesn't work that way, nor should it.
Ugh. No, I don't even want to go there. I suspect there's a lot of truth there, but it's just like, that's not why a student should be an athlete at a high school level. Yikes. How are you getting support as a coach? I know that you are aware that we're creating an athlete mental health handbook, talking about treating athletes, the whole person, not just their physical wellness, but also their mental wellness. What kind of training do you feel like as a coach in Colorado you're getting enough to be able to address the mental wellness of your students?
Well, I apologize.
That's okay.
To be a better coach, you have to figure out a way to be a better you. And that's a quote from Joe Ehrman, who, like, if you can't take care of yourself and get the things that you need, it's difficult to be able to do a good job for your program and for your kids. I think at a high school level, which sometimes within a club, you have more people around you, a high school coach of a particular sport, often you're on an island. You have to figure things out on your own. You don't have the support system. And whenever I talk to other coaches, I'm like, you have to find your people, just like the kids. You have to be talk to other coaches, find out what they do, problem solve with them, talk through your struggles, your things, because when you feel figuring it out all on your own, oftentimes that makes it challenging. And then you question sometimes what decision you came to because you figured it out on your own. And so to be able to surround yourself, whether it's by phone or messages or occasional chats. I mean, there's coaches within my own league that I compete against every year that I talk to multiple times a week during my season that I'm coaching against them. And the reason is we know we need each other. Like, we have to be able to do that. So I think when you can get supports just emotionally and troubleshooting and figuring out, that's a huge benefit. And then, as I said earlier, you have to grow as a coach. And so whether that's working with your AD, talking to other coaches, and figuring out resources, and there's all kinds of how to do a drill resources, that you can get easy answers to on the internet, through coaching clinics, all of that. But it's all the other things, mental health of athletes, and how to take care of them, how to build culture, how to team build, how to do all of those things. People have figured it out, so you don't have to figure it out. So you got to connect with other people, other resources. And I think when I do that personally, it's nice because it feels better about what I'm able to provide for kids. But as a coach, you can't stay stationary. You have to grow. And I think the best way to grow is through colleagues and through a network and through administrative support, because like I said, to be a better coach, you have to be a better you, and you have to take care of the things that make you want to be able to do it every single day, because there's high burnout and there's high turnover in coaching, and it's getting harder and harder for people to stay into coaching. So take care of you, and that ends up, allowing people to kind of stick with it, I think.
Good advice. Take care of you, for parents, for athletes, for coaches.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do, but we can do it.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, this has been a great conversation. It's been very enlightening. It rings a lot of bells. I think of, I coached Robbie's T-ball team at the YMCA when he was in kindergarten, and oh my gosh, like looking up drills back then was easy, but like the whole person, the whole athlete, it's a lot of responsibility, even for, coaching is a privilege.
Yeah. I'm lucky that I get to do it, and I've been able to do it for this long, for sure. And I hope, the impact and the influence that I've made has made kids wanted to come back and say hi. And there's nothing better as a coach. And I think if you ask any coach this, there's nothing better. I mean, it's great to go to practice. It's great to win games. There's nothing better to hear from and talk to players that you've coached, from previous years. Because if they want to come back and talk to you, you're like, okay, maybe I did something good at least one time for that kiddo, that they want to come back and tell me about their family and college and their kids and all of those things. And, so it's worth it. But I spend a lot of time with other families' kids, and you hope that, at the end that they come back and they're appreciative of it. And been very fortunate.
You have had a lot of prior athletes that have come back and showed their.
Well, been very, very fortunate, been very lucky that we've had kids that have come back and wanted to be around our program and be a part of what we do. So, yes.
Cool. Okay, so we end every hopeful conversation with the same question, and you can answer this in any direction that you would like to. What does the world need to hear right now?
Be kind. I think care for one another, treat each other with respect, be understanding of other people and their situation and their circumstances, and appreciate people. I mean, people wake up every day trying to get something accomplished, and I think a lot of that, people feel underappreciated and unnoticed, and show your gratitude to people. Be kind, show your gratitude, value each other.
Awesome. There's that school bell again, Dan.
What timing? I guess we're wrapping up.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Dan Watkins, Coach Watkins, for joining me today on Hopeful Conversations. Be sure to tune into our next episode. And until then, remember, hold on, pain ends.